Okay, now that we're outside, we can go and source the various materials like dirt and mosses that we were going to use for these terrariums here. And we're going to start with this one. I'm going to grab my shovel and my tweezers, and we'll head out to the garden. This succulent dish is beautiful. Anyways, when you're looking for materials and stuff, right, you can pretty much just use anything you find in your backyard or in your local forest, and you should be able to find some cool stuff. Now for substrate, I'm just going to take some dirt as I normally would, and I might mix in some like dead moss, and we'll kind of see where it goes. And the reason I like to use substrate from outside is because it can have all sorts of little critters in it, and it also has like twigs and stuff, and that just kind of helps, you know, make it a better drainage. That's something in that shovel there, not really sure. We're just gonna kind of put it in there, and yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. Now I'm collecting all this soil from relatively the same area, and the reason for that is because I'm using locally sourced plants, and I'd like to use, you know, the soil they're used to be growing in so they don't have to like acclimate. And the reason for that is also because these plants are already going to have to acclimate, because this is Canada, this is a temperate environment, and a terrarium, because it's sealed and, you know, it gets quite warm, it creates and moist, it creates a tropical environment, which means the plants will have to acclimate, and not all will survive. Now, if you want to combat this, you could just keep your terrarium open, but I find the appeal of these is not only they look nice, but also because they are practically zero maintenance. Some other things to keep in mind if you are using locally sourced soil is that you are going to pick up hitchhikers. However, I'd argue that's actually a good thing, because, you know, like little springtails and isopods can help keep the terrarium clean and healthy, and they can live there for a long time. Now for each of these terrariums, I'm going to be using soil from a slightly different part of the garden, but in general I'm going to be sourcing it from this side because this is where most of the moss is growing. And I'll see you guys once this has been filled up. Now my original intentions with this terrarium was, because of the label on this side, I wanted to face it this way so that, you know, you wouldn't see it, but unfortunately the mesh got pushed up here, so it wouldn't really look good from this angle, but it does look good from this angle. So much like what we do when we screw up an artistic piece, we come up with a completely crazy, insane, false claim that we pretend was intentional, and we hope that it sounds good enough to be believable. So I'm gonna make some sort of thing like, oh, you know, it makes it look like, you know, life can grow even in these devoid situations, and even when humanity has taken over and polluted the land with glass and plastic, nature can still grow through it. And you know what, I actually think it might look pretty cool. So that's gonna be this one. So we got that one and this one, and now we're gonna do this one, which will be the big boy. This is the best part about big terrariums. You get to use a big shovel. And it is starting to rain, but that won't stop me. Now, a lot of my less successful terrariums have actually soil sourced from this part of the garden, and there isn't really any moss growing here, so I'm going to continue to use soil from over here. And those crows will not give up, jeez. They're just cawing away. Let's just keep using this spot. Also, one other thing I forgot to mention is that when you're using soil from the ground, there's definitely a chance that there will be seeds and bits of plants. Like you can see right there, there's like bits of moss, and there's actually a chance that those will actually grow. So that's pretty cool, and that's something to keep in mind. So I'm just gonna get to this, and I'll see you guys in just a bit when this is done. So here's the finished dirt, and you can see, thankfully, the window screen didn't get screwed up like it did here. So we have the gross peeled sticker part on the back there, and it's mostly covered by the dirt. And I can tell you this substrate's gonna be very healthy. It's got a lot going on here. There's even a leaf in there, so this can be a good start for the terrariums. Now, what I'm gonna do now is go get a bucket to collect some like mosses and stuff, as well as a few sticks and twigs and other various tools like these ones, and then we'll hop right into the build process. Now I think you should add hardscape elements first, like wood and like twigs and stuff, especially if they're going to be really big, because that way you can build the plants around it. So I've sourced this piece, which was originally in this terrarium. This one is going to become an ecosphere, and this terrarium didn't really fail, but the isopods that were in it all died, and it's just kind of uninteresting on its side, and too much moisture builds up to really see anything. There's not enough depth to the drainage layer, and then I can't make it any higher because of how it's built, so I'm just going to recycle this one and build this one like this, and we're going to see how this stick looks in there, if it fits. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Then I have this rock, but it's not going to fit in any of these, so. And yeah, that's overkill, so I'm going to go get some moss now, and we're going to make these terrariums look real nice. Here are the mosses from that terrarium that I just took apart, and I'm just going to plant these guys here and see how they can do. Alright, now I'm going to collect some moss. Now, I went back and I added some extra pieces. You can see this tiny one here. I replaced the patch back there. Originally it was the same as that. And I added a small, tiny plant there, as well as another one here. And that's just kind of to make it look a bit more full, but I am actually really happy with how this one turned out. Now this is all here, this all white stuff is here because of condensation, because it's so damn cold outside. So I'm just gonna let this air out when I get inside before I seal it up and moisten it. But yeah, this one's looking really good. I'm really proud of this one. So now let's go on to the other two. Now, right off the bat, this terrarium actually presents a few problems. The main one is that it's got such a long and thin bottleneck, whereas this one, it was really easy to work in here. Oh, by the way, I added a fern. I don't think it'll survive because it was just a leaf, but we'll see what happens. And with this one, I can at least, you know, get my hands in here somewhat and get the tweezers in there. But this one, it's gonna be a real pain because it's very low. It's gonna be hard to plant any big plants like what I have in here. So, but we don't just want, you know, flat moss because that'll be boring. So what I think I'm gonna do is add a bit more dirt to this, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Now, looking at that tall bottle terrarium reminds me a lot about this one. Now, originally this one was completely flat, and like it had no dimensions to it. It was just like 3 pieces of flat moss. Now, it's a really interesting terrarium because it's got a rock, it's got moss growing up the back, it's got another rock. So I think we need to try to make something like this, or put like a really tall plant, but a skinny plant so we can get in there. So I'm gonna see what we can do about this, because this could be a really nice terrarium or not. Okay, so here's terrarium number 2, and I'm actually really happy how this one turned out. Now, I didn't record this one because it kept raining and I kept running back and forth to gather new plants for it, but I think it looks really good. And I will record this one because this one's going to be a bit easier to do, but this one was a bit of a pain, but I do like how it worked out. I've got this plant, this is the same plant, or it was found in a similar location to that one like long sticky plant I have in the isopod terrarium. That's some moss, there's some moss there. That's that one bushy plant I use a lot. There's a twig, and then there's a rock. So yeah, I'm really happy how this one turned out. So now we just gotta do the last one. And this one should be a bit easier because I can actually kind of get my hand in here and it's not super deep. I'm going to be using this stick in this terrarium, and the reason I bring that up is this is the same stick that was in here when it was an ecosphere, so it's kind of like it's evolved into something new, but you know, the stick still remains. So that's how we're going to start this off, and we're going to get into it. So there's the finished terrarium. I think it looks pretty darn good. Alright, so now let's go upstairs and we're going to seed all these terrariums with Springtails and seal them up, and then we'll be good to go. Now, seeding your terrariums with the Springtails is pretty not that difficult. So what I have here is a Springtail culture which I bought, and I'll just open this up really quick. So here you can see tons of Springtails. And what we're going to do is, there's a lot of water in here, so we can kind of pour these guys into the terrariums. Okay, so what I've done here is I've actually created a secondary culture. Now I just use the same charcoal I do for the terrariums. And basically I just poured that in here along with a few of my Springtails. You can't see any yet because there's not that many, but the hope is they will colonize this. And to feed them, you can use nutritious yeast or uncooked white rice, which mold will grow on and they can feed off of that. So we're just going to sprinkle a bit of this in here. And this is, according to some videos I've watched, this tends to be better, source Serpa Design, because you don't have to like change it as often, where the nutritional yeast you have to feed them more often. So that's something to keep in mind. And I thought I got some Springtails in here, but I'm not really sure, so I'm just going to do this off camera because it's a little frustrating to do, but I'm going to seed all these terrariums with Springtails, and then I'll have one more thing to do before the end of this video. Okay, so now each terrarium has been seeded with Springtails. You can see all their final sort of looks here. Now this one's going to go up here. This is kind of my jar shelf. I recently just cleaned this up. I can't remember if you guys have seen it, but it was a mess. I had like a bucket of sand, which is now down there, up here. Now, especially when this is done with terrariums, this will look a lot nicer. There are some things I'd like to move around up here, particularly this Dacian statue. I'm not really sure where I'm going to put this. Yeah, I'll find a spot for it. Anyway, that's not what's important right now. What's important is, I mentioned at the start of this video, I was going to make an ecosphere in this jar and this jar. And that still stands, but one of the biggest problems with my other one, which is now this, was that I believe there was not enough food supply because the plant that was in there was not enough. So what I'm thinking happened is that plant took all the possible... Hello, spider. All right, you can just chill in here. I don't really care. But it took away all the sort of potential for algae growth, sucking away all the nutrients is how I like to put it. But I don't know if that's true. But what I'm thinking is it would be best to start off a ecosphere with some algae. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to take this little jar and I'm going to do a few things to make it to grow some algae, but like before it becomes an ecosphere. Now that's not going to be in this video because we're kind of running short on time here, but that will be in the next video. And then the video after that, I will actually make the ecospheres. So that's something to keep in mind, and we'll see what I can do with this. So hope you enjoy this sequel to the Terrarium Trio video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. I need to get a better outro.